All right, let's now turn to Syria, where U.S.-led airstrikes against ISIL are continuing for yet another day. Air raids overnight in 4 Syrian provinces in the northern and eastern parts of the country. In an interview with CBS, the president, he spoke out about the U.S. military campaign against ISIL. The president says American officials, underestimated the challenge and that the world always looks to the U.S. when it's all said and done to take a lead in times of crisis.
I think our head of the intelligence community, Jim Clapper, has acknowledged that I think they underestimated what had been taking place in Syria.
America leads. We are the indispensable nation. We have capacity no one else has. Our military is the best in the history of the world. And when trouble comes up anywhere in the world, they don't call Beijing, they don't call Moscow, they call us. That's how we go. That's how we roll. And that's what makes us America.
Now, the president, he's digging in his heels, saying that the U.S. will not send in ground forces. Now, we do have about 1,000 troops on the ground there, but he says there will not be additional troops in anything approaching larger numbers. However, some say it is a necessary move.
At some point, somebody's boots have to be on the ground. We have no choice. These are barbarians. They intend to kill us.
And to be fair to Speaker Boehner, he didn't just take shots at what the president wants to do and be on the halfway stage as the president's call. He said definitively he believes more troops should be there, but the public, they're not with him. 3 in 5 Americans opposing here the additional boots on the ground strategy, and you see 38% saying they would support sending in those additional troops into Iraq and Syria. All right, what do you think? Because I understand what Boehner's saying, and certainly I think the president's got the public's pulse in this, but you've seen here a lot of generals, including active generals, testifying that said airstrikes may not do this thing. If we qualify them as a threat, not just to the region, but to a global level, not that we're talking 50, 100,000 troops, but 10 to 20,000 troops would make a material difference here. And if you don't do it, at a certain point, the airstrikes, can only go so far.
Yeah, and it's 60% of Americans oppose boots on the ground, yet 70% say they're probably going to be necessary. And this has always been my question about this strategy of absolutely no boots on the ground. If in 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years, the military generals, his top military advisors come to President Obama and say, we are not in a position to degrade or destroy ISIL at this point. We can't achieve your objective without 200, 300, 400 troops on the ground. What's he going to do? Say no? Absolutely not. That's the history of the United States. That's the history of all military combat. If it's necessary, it's got to be done. So once he put his goal out there and then said he absolutely isn't going to consider boots on the ground, even the American public who oppose it know that that's really a problem.
But the other part of American history on the ground is we still have troops in Korea, we still have troops in Germany, we still have troops in Japan, we still have troops in the Philippines, we still have troops in Cuba.
We had once
No, I understand that, but we never get out. And what's the end game for pulling those troops out of Syria and pulling those troops out of Iraq? At what point does it actually get safe enough that we can leave? Otherwise, we're keeping our forces there.
But nobody thinks, though, Andrew, that pulling the troops out as we did, and I think we can rightfully say the Iraqi military didn't step up, but was hoped for, the Afghani government. I mean, there's a lot of players to point fingers to, but in retrospect, everybody agrees that a larger contingent that would have been there would have been a much greater deterrent, and those fledgling governments would have had a better chance to succeed.
And they may well have, but at what cost? At how much gold out of our treasury would we have spent to keep them there? How many American lives would have been lost in the 4 years since we pulled out?
But then look what happened with ISIL and what emerged out of nowhere. We can't just say, we'll stay within our borders, we don't have any fights anywhere else. You think anyone really, I mean, maybe there's a few psychos who do, but do you think any rational person really wants to get involved into another Middle East fight? But we've already proven and seen avoiding it doesn't make it go away.
Well, first of all, I think there are some aspects of our military-industrial complex that would love to see us get involved in another Middle East war. And second of all, but I understand your point, and we try to protect ourselves from as many threats as we can and diminish those threats before they can attack us. But when does it ever end?
But if if that is the reality and the president knows it, then why commit troops? Why say this is your goal when you're not going to be able to achieve it? everybody, as Richard mentioned, in the military says you need boots on the ground to achieve this goal. So why are we pretending we don't?
It's pretending. What's the end game? In my opinion, this president is trying to run out the clock and pass this political hot potato to the next president, whether it be Hillary Clinton or Republican or whoever it might be. What's number one? The number one premise in this president's mind is what got me this job. And he's looking at those polls and he's saying my opposition to the war in Iraq catapulted me in a Democratic field, so I can't go back on that. I mean, even folks that are not military experts, like around this table, we all can agree that you're going to need boots on the ground at some point. And this president, and we don't know when that could change. The first time a pilot is captured or goes down or whatever, you're dealing with boots on the ground.
And you look at just this president, exactly what you said, Dominic. You close your eyes. He sounds like a wartime president. Okay, think of the tone that he came in and where he is, and the reality that he says is there. Not that he wants, right? I mean, he got us out of Iraq and Afghanistan, and as he promises he can, as he was elected to do. I get all that. But he himself is saying, I know what we're dealing with, and I know what the consequences to the greater Middle East happen if this group takes over not just Syria, but now imagine Iraq. Imagine they went into Baghdad. Imagine what happens over there, as if it stays there and it doesn't come here. I mean, go talk to the Australians and the rest of the world about this, right? It doesn't work that way.
Richard, but I want to know who is advising the president on message. It is bad for him.
Did you think he did good last night? I thought he did well.
Well, here's the point that I'm making. It is bad for this president to come forward and pass the buck to the intelligence community like it's all their fault. No, Mr. President, the buck stops with you. You were the one that came forward and said there was no strategy for this situation. So now you can't turn around and blame the intelligence community. You're the president, deal with it, and move forward.
I didn't have too much of a problem saying that the intelligence said that, this wasn't too big of an outfit. It was a ragtag, and they definitely underestimated what ISIL was.
Well, obviously somebody was wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, he said, go talk to Mr. Clapper. Don't talk to him, but I'm with you. You tell us what you think, folks. Go over to Facebook and Twitter and sound off on our question here. Do you think, and Jeannie did it perfectly, the majority of Americans, they don't want to do it, but even a greater majority believe that we end up will doing it. Does the U.S. need to send in ground troops here? All right, when we come back, we will switch gears and come back not only stateside, but close to our region. The work habits of one New York City public advocate are coming into question after her own aides seemingly ratted her out. Why some are wondering why Letitia James spends so much time out of the office.